So we're going to talk about our favorite character in crypto Twitter. I don't know how he got adopted. Probably all that Bitcoin he bought earlier this year. But Elon Musk is tweeting again. He's talking about selling some of his capital in his company, Tesla, in order to kind of like test the waters on this unrealized tax gains theory that's going around Washington, D.C. He said that he'd sell 10% of his Tesla stock depending on the results of his Twitter poll. There's results in front of you. 58% of Twitters decided that he should sell 10% of the stock. Then Tesla's stock itself dropped 2.5% this morning, which is a pretty big drop for any equity. But for Tesla, that's not like a huge drop. We've seen multiple drops of over 5% in recent history. But just kind of continues the story of Elon Musk moving markets with just his thumbs. Naomi, I'm going to throw this one over to you.
Yeah, it's interesting because Elon is kind of a master, and he sometimes puts tweets out there, like when he first said that Bitcoin would stop being accepted at Tesla stores, and everyone was like, "Oh my god!" And he's like, "Yeah, because of the environment, am I right?" And then we find out that he's like in the middle of doing this deal with the EPA or something, and you're like, "Oh, is that why?" And then this is coming out, and he's like, "Oh, well, unrealized capital gains, am I right?" And then we find out that actually there's a good chance he would have had to sell a bunch of this stuff this year anyway, because he had a bunch of options that were about to expire. So he has a big tax bill anyway, and so he's going to sell it, and so he's kind of lumping this together. But I mean, we can dig into this whole unrealized capital gains ridiculousness some more if we want. Like, probably the best tweet that I saw that kind of sums up how dumb the idea of paying tax on unrealized capital gains is. It's like, well, can I start claiming deductions on unrealized children? Because this whole thing, like, if it's unrealized, it's not there. Like, you can't just be making these assertions about things that haven't eventuated. So it's kind of a ridiculous scenario. So it does bother me, regardless of why Elon is doing it, that he is giving lip service to this whole unrealized capital gains ridiculousness, because it does give it some credibility, and I think it deserves none. But I will throw it to you, George, for your take.
Yeah, before I get back to Elon, I would say about the unrealized capital gains conversation, if my retired grandmother has to pay a bunch of taxes on the house that she bought in the 40s or 50s, I'm going to have a lot of problems with the government. I know me just saying I have problems doesn't have much credence, but I'm sure there are a lot of old people out there who've had homes for 40 years, whose houses have appreciated because of a lot of tomfoolery from the government printing money. So I'd be very upset if my grandmother would have to sell her house just so she could pay a tax bill. But back to Elon and Lord Edge, if you will. I love that he's consistently trying to stick it to the SEC and the regulators, right? Doing a Twitter poll about if he should sell 10% of his shares, 10% of the shares that he holds in Tesla is a complete departure from what it means to be a fiduciary, right? You're not supposed to do that, but he just said, screw it. I don't care what the SEC thinks. I don't care what the regulators think. And then he starts trying to move markets with Dogecoin. I will take a small victory as someone who really likes Bitcoin, that it seems like Elon is kind of taking his foot off the pedal of trying to manipulate Bitcoin. So maybe he takes it more seriously than he does take, even his own company's shares and Dogecoin. In terms of Tesla being valued at what it's valued at, I have a lot of choice things to say there, but we won't get into that here. I'd rather just throw it to Naomi and see what she has to say.
Just on note of what you were saying, then I'll throw it to Jen. So, George, you mentioned all the tomfoolery that the government does, which is inflating the money supply, devaluing the dollar. Things seem like they're worth a lot more, but are they really? It's such a great point. And someone made a great tweet about it last week that I retweeted, Devin Zugel, who said, if hanging around Argentines has taught me anything, it's that inflation has endlessly surprising effects. If you buy a house for $1 million, then inflation halves the value of USD, and then you sell for $2 million, you get taxed on capital gains of $1 million, even though in real terms your profit was zero. So it's such a great point that you bring up about all of this, asset inflation that we're seeing around, and these gains that people are making, like how much of that is actually the value increasing and like in real terms, and how much of that is just the value of the US dollar decreasing. So it's craziness to me, all of this stuff. So Jen, I'll just throw it to you for final words.
Yeah, before we head on over to China, I know we have to move on. I just want to say, whatever happened to Elon's Twitter babysitter? Is that not a thing anymore?
Never existed. Never existed.
I rage quit.
Yeah, they were like, just not doing this anymore. Bye.